Alright, it's finally time to review what has been my most anticipated album of 2021, but first, I want to give a quick dishonorable mention. You guys know that usually if I listen to a record that I think is excellent or awful, but that I don't really want to do a full review of, I like to mention it at the beginning of another video, just so it doesn't look weird when it shows up on a year-end list. And unfortunately, we have our first stinker of 2021. That is this new Justin Bieber EP, Freedom. What happened? Just a few weeks ago, he released an album that I thought was at the very least decent and I thought was a step in the right direction. Justice was fine, but then he decided to squander every bit of goodwill that he had from that record. First with the very bad bonus tracks that were released on the Triple Chucks edition of the album, and now with this new EP. He released this thing on Easter, but honestly it should be sacrilege. Whether it be the cheesy intro track where he adopts a patois and sings over this Caribbean style beat, the numerous tracks where it sounds like he's doing a Drake or Chance the Rapper impression, the awful whiny choruses that he sings all throughout the record, the one song that actually sounded nice but actually ended up being ruined by Judah Smith's sermon where he kind of played God, or the closing track where he pretty much bellyaches about cancel culture, something that I don't think he's ever been a victim of. This EP was honestly agonizing, and if I did a full review of it, it absolutely would have gotten an awful rating. I don't think that Bieber could have gotten worse than Yummy, but to be quite frank, the combined awfulness of this EP is worse than Yummy. There's not one track that's worse than Yummy, but the combined power of this EP is worse than Yummy. Don't listen to it. Even for 6 tracks, it's agonizing. Alright, back to the positivity though. Brockhampton is finally back with their brand new studio album, Roadrunner New Light, New Machine. This is the 6th studio album from the best boy band since One Direction, Brockhampton, and it's their first studio album since 2019's Ginger. While that album, like every post-saturation Brockhampton release, received some mixed reception, I notably rank Ginger as my favorite album of 2019. I'd honestly even go as far as to call it one of my personal favorite albums ever. Maybe it's not one of the objective greatest, but it's had an insane personal impact on me. That album helped me get through some hard times. It helped me to heal and grow in a lot of ways, and it furthered my appreciation of the group's previous music. I had enjoyed Brockhampton a good bit up to that point, but Ginger was the album that really turned me into a huge fan of the group. It was that love that made me excited for whatever they would do next, and they were on a very good trajectory. The track Sugar from that album became their first hit on the Billboard Hot 100, and it even received a fantastic remix featuring Dua Lipa and John B. Ryan Beatty was also featured, but he was on the original song as well. Excitement was filling the air for me. I was ready for the next project in Brockhampton's lineup. But then 2020 happened, and the year came and went without a proper album from the group. They did release their Technical Difficulties project, which was just a small series of non-studio produced singles that they released and deleted over a few weeks on their YouTube channel. And near the end of the year, they teased the new record a lot, but obviously they still had a lot of work to do and weren't able to get it out at the end of 2020. Thus making 2020 the first year that they didn't release a full-length project since 2015, when the group had just rebranded as Brockhampton after being known as Alive Since Forever. Fortunately, the group finally began their rollout for this project with singles like Buzz Cut and Count on Me, and then came the proper album, which they announced as the first of 2 coming this year, the second of which will be the group's final record. They've hinted for a while that Brockhampton wouldn't stick around forever, and it seems we're now nearing the end of the group's journey. This album is 13 tracks in about 47 minutes, which is really close in length to Ginger, and musically speaking, it's another wonderful album from the BH Boys. Per usual, it's a dramatic shift in tone, but at the same time, it feels like a culmination of all the directions they've gone in thus far. Buzz Cut, the leadoff single, kicks off the record as an erratic banger that almost feels like an expansion of something the boys would have made during the Iridescence era. It's a banger among bangers from the group, with wild production that immediately hooks you in, and an excellent high-energy performance by Kevin that's filled with quotables. Can't tell you how many times this track made me want to scream out, "Who let the dope boys out?" His lyrics are very personal, and I know there were some people who complained that he sounded a bit monotone on Ginger, so it's nice to see him bring back a lot of energy with this performance. Danny Brown also absolutely bodies this beat, and I like the light vocal outro from Joba too. 2. Chain On is the only track from the Technical Difficulties mixtape to properly make it onto the album, and while it wasn't my personal favorite from Technical Difficulties, I'm glad that it still made it. I like the kind of mellow boom bap leading beat, and Kevin is in his zone crafting another super catchy hook. JPEG Mafia features on the track, and as you would reasonably expect, he nails it and sounds perfect up against the beat. Dom also tops things off with a wonderful verse, making this a smooth piece of conscious hip-hop. Count on Me is a single I know a lot of people weren't too crazy about, but I personally love it. It helps that I really enjoy a lot of the R&B leaning songs that Brockhampton puts out, and this is another great one. The smooth production that's lined with some light guitar plucks and whistles, combined with the irresistibly catchy hook from Jabari, Ryan Beatty, and surprisingly Shawn Mendes, immediately give me callbacks to something like Baby Bull from the Technical Difficulties tape. I also like the charismatic guest verses from A$AP Rocky and So Gone So Flexy, and Matt's flow fits perfectly for the track. Bankroll is a pretty exciting addition to the record as well. This is a song that was first teased at back in the Iridescence era, and a lot of Brockhampton fans have been waiting for it to get a full release. Already, it's cool to see it make its way onto this record. And as you'd expect, it's plenty of fun. It's a dark but hard-hitting trap track that kicks itself off with a slick verse from A$AP Ferg. He's in top form here, and even though A$AP Rocky's inclusion is pretty small, he's used tastefully and his moments add to the hazy vibe of the track. Matt crafts another sticky hook, Merlin kills it with his UK-leaning flow on his verse, and I also like the fast-paced melodic sing-rapping from Jabari. It's been a bit of a surprise seeing Bari join in as a performer for the group, but I think he sounds right at home and brings a nice extra flavor to this track. The Light is a wildly different turn for the group. It still carries some boom bap vibes, but the heavy abrasive guitars almost make it feel like a piece of psychedelic rock. I like this change of pace, and Joba and Kevin really bear it all in their verses. The pain in their voices is palpable, and it really adds to the almost cathartic feel that the track goes for. Windows is a 6-minute banger that's worth every second. The track leans a bit into some jazz rap vibes, and it's the only cut on the record that features every member of the group in some way. In fact, this posse cut even features a few extra appearances, and there's so much to dive into that I'll try to go one by one. So Gone So Flexy returns to drop a very chilly verse, Merlin and Matt each drop high-energy cutthroat verses, and Jabari delivers a hook that even despite some repetition ends up being extremely catchy. Dom goes unbelievably hard on his performance on one of his most charismatic verses to date. Joba goes a bit quieter on his verse, but nevertheless brings a lot of character to his performance. And there's even a smooth, well-sung post-chorus from Ryan Beatty. Kevin's appearance is a bit smaller, being more of a process bridge, but it paves the way for Bareface, who delivers some of his best rapping yet. His flows twist and turn in so many interesting ways, and it rounds out an excellent cut that works even with its long length. I'll Take You On is a track that leans more into the R&B vibes that the group came through with throughout Ginger, though it also kind of reminds me of that track 1:45 AM that Bareface dropped with No Rome last year. The beat has some sweet bounce to it with a snappy feel that immediately grabs me. Bareface's hook is one of the catchiest on the album, and Kevin and Matt drop some smooth auto-tune verses as well. Joba's refrain is a small addition, but it's still very nice, and Bareface's own verse brings more of these stunning, beautiful vocals that I love hearing out of him. It's also cool hearing the very smooth, nice singing from Charlie Wilson, too. Old News is a smooth little pop rap banger. It's obviously much lighter than much of what else is here, but it's so snappy and immediate that it hooks you in so easily. Jabari's chorus is unbelievably sticky. Again, it's nice seeing him come into his own as a performer. Matt's verse is filtered but fun. Merlin brings a lot of his trademark energy. Guest artist Baird brings some nice, slightly faster flows to his verse, and Joba gives his own little sweet flair to finish the song up. What's the Occasion is another more guitar-driven track, feeling like a bit of a mix between funk and rap rock. Matt delivers another strong verse with some clever filters, but really this is Joba's song. He delivers a very mellow chorus and emotional verse, and he once again wears his emotions on his sleeve on the song. I'd honestly go as far as to say this is Joba's album because of how hard he goes throughout it, and this track is another example of that. When I Ball has a very nostalgic feel with production that was assisted by Chad Hugo of the Neptunes. Adding to the nostalgic feel of the writing, the instrumental is a piano-driven piece of neo-soul that these boys own. Joba and Kevin come together for the beautiful heavenly chorus, and Dom and Matt deliver their own poignant verses. This is the type of song that I just want to rock me to sleep. It's so dreamy and airy, and it's easy to fall in love with. Don't Shoot Up the Party is another hard-hitting banger leaning a bit into a G-funk feel. It definitely carries a lot of that experimental sound that the group is well known for, and while the high-energy feel of it calls back to some of the finest bangers the group has put out, it still feels like it moves in a different direction that the group hasn't gone in before. Kevin, Matt, and Joba flow like butter on this beat, and they drop quotable after quotable all throughout the song. By far, I might even say this is one of the best tracks the group's put out. Dear Lord is a cut that honestly drove me to tears when I listen to it. You guys know that I'm a big fan of Bareface, and this song consists entirely of Bareface, who sings a cappella along with a choir in a track that's a tribute to Joba. Bareface sings to God and asks him to bless and be there for Joba, who's been going through a lot of pain in the wake of his father's suicide. It's a lovely gesture first and foremost, but it's also just a beautiful track. Having a non-instrumental song with nothing but Bareface's vocals is just amazing as it is, and he sounds beautiful. This is one of those tracks that just feels like a warm hug. It's stunningly emotional and by far one of my favorite points on the album. The Light Part 2 is the closer to the album, and it's another very mellow, raw piece of alternative R&B. Like the first part, this is Kevin and Joba's song. Joba whispers throughout the chorus, but it actually works for the smooth vibe the track creates. Kevin reflects on his childhood and family life and how he rose to where he is as a rapper, and Joba also drops the verse of his life, addressing his father and the personal impact of his passing. Joba has a knack for dropping these types of verses that just hit straight at the heart, and this is another perfect example. As he raps, you can hear the pain in his voice and how he's kind of struggling to keep his emotions together, to the point where he's on the verge of tears. It's one of the most powerful moments in Brockhampton's discography, and I don't think there's a more perfect album closer than this. Overall, Brockhampton delivered on the hype with their newest album. As what may be seen as the first part of the group's finale, Roadrunner New Light New Machine already feels like the culmination of the group's journey. Sonically, we have a great mixture of these sounds and styles from all the band's records up to this point, with even more room for experimentation and exploration of new genres. The writing continues in the direction of healing and catharsis that the group showed on Ginger, but with even more detailed storytelling and more of the fantastic quotables that help make the group so appealing in the first place. A lot of the tracks center around fewer members, which is actually a good thing as it allows each of them to have their moments to shine, and all of the boys come prepared here. I know I've said this is Joba's album and he really bears it all, but it's not like he's overshadowing. The rest of the group puts in excellent work, and even the addition of Jabari as a vocalist gives these tracks an extra flavor. Furthermore, while this has probably the most features on any BH album up to this point, I'm happy to say the features are also in top form and don't distract from the boys themselves. All in all, Brockhampton's latest project was everything that I wanted it to be, and as much as I don't want this journey to end, I'm so excited to see how it further culminates on their final album later this year. Overall, on my rating scale, if you couldn't tell already, Brockhampton's Roadrunner New Light New Machine is gonna get an excellent rating from me. Again, it was everything I hoped it would be. I'm very happy with how it turned out, and despite the long wait, the boys more than proved that it was worth it. Of course, that's just my opinion on this album. What did you guys think about it? Did you love it as much as I did? Did you hate it way more than I did? Were you just completely indifferent towards it? And what are you guys hoping to see on their final record? Whatever your thoughts are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe, thank you. If not, it's no big deal. I totally understand. If you guys want to support my passion for content creation by subscribing to my OnlyFans, where I create exclusive music review and poetry content for $4.99 a month, the link to that is in the description as well. Again, it's no big deal if you can't or don't want to. I totally understand, and I appreciate anyone who is able to. In terms of what's next, I'm not sure who's dropping soon, but I'm sure there are a lot of new albums being worked on, and there are going to be plenty that I'm going to want to look at. And even if there aren't, I have a lot to look at in 10 years later, so I will be doing a lot of those videos. Again, because there are so few 10 years later videos I want to do in April and May, I might try to get those out of the way as fast as I can, just so I don't have to worry about crunching when months like June happen, because June is going to be very heavy for 10 years later. Regardless, plenty of videos are going to be coming, so stay tuned for them, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.